Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. It's great to have you here. So in today's video, I would like to compare some of the most popular clutches and wristlets from Saint Laurent to figure out which one would be the best purchase from a savvy luxury perspective. Now, I actually have 4 different clutches, wristlets from Saint Laurent that I'm going to include in today's video. And then I also found another popular model online, which I actually don't have, but I'm also going to include that model in the ranking. And in the ranking, I'm going to use 6 specific criteria. So the first one is versatility. How many uses would that clutch have? How versatile is it? The second one is uniqueness of design. So I will be talking about whether the clutch or a wristlet actually has any unique design elements. The third one is ease of use. So here I will be ranking how easy it is to manipulate the clutch, to get in and out, to put your items inside the clutch. The next criteria will be quality of craftsmanship. So we will be looking at the quality of these items. The next criteria will be capacity. So this is just basically looking at how much stuff is it possible to actually fit into that clutch or wristlet. And last but not least, we are also going to consider the cost. So obviously, from a savvy perspective, the lower, the better. And all of this criteria, I'm going to be ranking on a 10-point scale. So with 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. So if you're interested to find out which Saint Laurent clutch actually wins today's competition, keep on watching. Okay, the first model we are going to consider today is this Uptown Clutch from Saint Laurent. For versatility, I gave this model a 3, basically because there is literally only one way you can use it, and this is simply as a clutch. I generally speaking think that this clutch could be used for day if you're maybe running errands. It could also be used for a night out, for an evening event. You can also use this clutch inside of a bigger bag, like a tote bag, but because it is so thin, there's really not much that you can put in there. So to me, this doesn't really function like a good keep all. And for all of these reasons, I gave this clutch a fairly low score of 3 for versatility. So the next consideration is uniqueness of design. And I also gave this clutch a fairly low score of 3 because there is really not that much going on. It is kind of a simple envelope clutch that just has a magnetic closure right here. And there is a fairly large YSL logo, which in some ways just kind of makes it feel a little bit too logo-y. So when it comes to uniqueness of design, I didn't think that there were any interesting elements, and I gave this clutch a 3. The one redeeming point here, however, is that you could get this clutch in many different leather textures, colors, and also hardware combinations. So perhaps you can actually find a clutch that suits your wardrobe perfectly. For the ease of use, I actually gave this clutch a fairly high score of 7. So, it is quite easy to get in and out. It is a simple magnetic closure, and the clutch is really quite flat. So nothing kind of gets in the way when it comes to actually opening and closing the clutch. The only reason that I didn't give it a higher score is because you do not have a wristlet or anything like this. So basically the only way you're actually using this particular clutch envelope is basically just holding it as a clutch. For the quality of craftsmanship, I gave this clutch a score in the middle, which is a 5. Again, it's pretty hard to tell because there is not much that's actually going on here. But, you've got leather that is really quite robust. The stitching also overall looks quite good, but because there are not that many details, it was really difficult for me to actually speak about quality. So I decided to give it a score in the middle, which is a 5. The next consideration is capacity, and because this clutch is fairly flat, I gave it a score of 4. So you can definitely fit a phone in here and a couple of other smaller items, a couple of cards. So capacity is not too bad, but because the clutch is actually so flat, you definitely cannot put way too many items into this clutch because it simply would not close. And last but not least, for the cost, I actually gave this clutch an 8. So for a full leather clutch, the lowest price that you could actually find online, or the lowest price that I could find online, was $575. And I'm going to link a couple of options below. So I think this price, considering current luxury designer prices, is actually not that bad. So for this reason, for the cost for this clutch, I gave it a fairly high score of 8. By the way, my name is Lisa and I'm your guide to savvy luxury shopping no matter where in the world you are. Subscribe to my channel to learn more about strategic luxury shopping with the emphasis on quality and timelessness of your items. So next up today is this small puffer pouch from Saint Laurent. So for versatility, I gave this pouch a score of 5. And this is a slightly higher score than the previous clutch. And this is because, you've got a clutch here that is a little bit wider. So I feel that you could use it during the day, you could use it during the night, but also because it is a little bit wider, you could actually use it as a keep all in one of your larger tote bags. So in that sense, I think this clutch is just a little bit more versatile. For uniqueness of design, I actually gave this clutch a fairly high score of 8. And this really has to do with this just kind of puffer leather material or puffer leather style. I think it makes this clutch look a little bit more unique, a little bit more interesting. I also like how the YSL logo is a little bit less prominent because it's sitting right here on the indent of the clutch, and therefore is just maybe not as obvious. The next thing that I also kind of considered in the design is because this clutch actually comes with a separate card holder, which is also very nicely designed. So to me, all of this just kind of contributes to the design of this item as a package. And again, for some of these reasons, I gave this clutch a fairly high score of 8 for uniqueness of design. So the next consideration is ease of use. And I gave this clutch a score in the middle, a 5. And that's because the opening of the clutch is just a little narrow, especially if you're trying to fit in a phone. So a phone actually fits in here, which is a plus, but you kind of have to really wiggle it in, and it's not the easiest thing to do. And if you're looking for items in this clutch, this narrowish opening also can be a little bit problematic. So I don't think it's the easiest clutch to use at all. The closure is quite easy. It is a magnetic closure, so I never had problems with this. But because the opening is a bit narrow and I do not know, just a little bit tight, I didn't give this clutch a very high score for ease of use. So the next consideration is quality of craftsmanship. And I actually gave this clutch a fairly high score of 8. And this really has to do with maybe 2 key elements. I really like the quality of the leather. It actually feels very soft and very luxurious, like much more luxurious than the previous model, the Uptown Clutch. Also, there is so much more stitching here, because you've got this quilting going on. And looking at the stitching, at least the model that I got and I bought it in the boutique, really looks high quality. I don't see any inconsistencies. Everything looks very straight and very clean, and I like it very much. So for quality of craftsmanship, I actually gave this clutch an 8. The next item on our list, or the next criteria on our list, is capacity. And from this standpoint, this clutch is getting a 4, a fairly low score. So the reason I decided that it gets a 4 is because, well, yes, you can fit a phone. Yes, you can fit a couple of additional items. But if you put an item like a phone in here, it actually becomes very difficult to put in any other smaller items. So the capacity is really not that great. If you choose not to put a phone into this clutch, the capacity obviously increases. So that's why I also think that this could be an interesting keep all to have in a bigger bag. But overall, I think the capacity of this clutch is really not that great. So I ranked it at a 4. And last but not least is cost. So for cost, I gave this clutch a score of 6. And I was kind of struggling because this is a fully leather clutch. And as I said, the craftsmanship is really quite nice. But the price is also quite high for such a small item. So right now it's retailing for $995, which is almost $1,000. Another redeeming point, however, is that you are getting another item together with this clutch, and this is a card holder. And to be honest, I have probably used this card holder more than I've used the actual clutch because I found the card holder to be quite versatile, and I've put it in some of my other smaller bags as well. So basically, at $995, I gave this a score of 6 for cost. Okay, now let's look at this Cassandre Small Quilted Clutch from Saint Laurent. For versatility, I gave this a fairly high score of 8, and this is because this clutch actually has a wristlet. So it means you can wear this as a clutch. You can also wear this on your wrist, and I think this makes it a little bit more appropriate for daily use. For example, if you're running out just to buy a couple of things, or maybe go to the bank or do some kind of errands. And also, if you remove this wristlet, not only do you actually get a clutch, but you get a pretty nice, decent sized keyhole for like a bigger tote bag. And because this clutch is not too narrow, I think you could fit quite a few smaller items, and it could actually be really quite a functional keyhole given the shape that it has. Next, when we look at the uniqueness of design, I give this clutch a score in the middle, basically a 5. So, you've got some chevron quilting going on, which does look quite nice. There is a YSL logo, but beyond that, there is not much that's going on with the design here. The wristlet as well. So in a way, this is still quite a simple model, and for this reason, I scored it right in the middle at 5. For the ease of use, however, this clutch got a fairly high score of 8. And once again, this has to do with the wristlet because it becomes easier to actually carry this clutch, if you put it on the wrist, so it gives you a little bit more mobility with your arms. And then, it's kind of really easy to actually get in and out of this clutch as well because it is a simple magnetic closure. And the opening, at least in my opinion, is really quite wide and functional. So you don't have to struggle or to jiggle things to try to get them in there. The bag on the inside also has some card slots, which also makes it easier to use this clutch because, well, you don't have to have like a separate card holder inside. For the quality of craftsmanship, I gave this clutch a fairly high score of 7. And again, just looking at the stitching, I was fairly happy with how precise and straight all the stitching is, all the corners and all the edges. The leather itself is not soft. It's kind of that really scratch resistant, robust leather that we see often with YSL bags. So, maybe this constitutes quality, at least in a sense that this clutch, can stand some impact. The only reason that I didn't give it maybe even a higher score is that I feel that the quality of hardware, for example, right here, is perhaps lacking a little bit. But overall, I'm happy with the quality of this product, and therefore, it gets a 7, which is a score kind of up there. The next one, for capacity, I also gave this clutch a fairly high score of 6. And again, it has to do with the fact that you could easily fit a phone in here, and once you fit the phone, you actually have space for other items as well. Maybe some keys, maybe a lipstick or a lip gloss. You don't need to have a separate card holder because you can put the cards in the bag there. So the capacity is actually quite decent for the size that it is. And because of the shape of the opening, you're not struggling to get your items in and out of this clutch. And last but not least, for the cost, I gave this a fairly low score of 4. So this clutch right now is retailing for $795. I'm going to link a couple of options below. At least the cheapest price I could find online is $795. And again, this is almost $800 for something that's basically a clutch, doesn't even come with kind of any additional card holders or anything like this. The craftsmanship is good, but it is not outstanding. So I think that maybe the price for this item could actually be slightly better. So for this reason, it got a bit of a low ranking for me for the cost. Next up is this Rive Gauche clutch from Saint Laurent. So for versatility, I gave it a score of 6. It has a wristlet, which is a plus. It means you can carry it a bit easier. It is also quite large, which makes it kind of easy to carry with you if you're just kind of putting it under your armpit. But because this clutch is so casual, I can only see myself using it during the daytime and not for an evening event. So for this reason, it did not get a higher score. But I still gave it a 6 also because I think this is a great keyhole in a bigger tote. And this is exactly what I do with this clutch a lot when I actually go traveling. I put maybe some of the documents, passports in here, tickets, boarding passes, and then I carry this clutch with me around the airport. If I go shopping or get a coffee so that I don't have to actually carry my bigger tote or my carry-on with me. So it gets kind of a score of 6 for versatility because there are some positives here, but definitely some negative aspects as well. And literally the main negative aspect is that this is just way too casual and cannot be used in the evening. For uniqueness of design, this clutch got a 1 from me, so the lowest possible score. And that's honestly because it is just a simple canvas clutch with literally just like the name of the brand, the name of the particular, type of bag, Rive, Gauche, plastered on in the middle right here. I talked in one of my videos previously about the fact how I just don't necessarily really like bags that have the brand name right in the middle, very visibly printed on the bag itself. Now, I feel that for a casual clutch, it's kind of okay because I also use it casually and I put it in my casual kind of travel tote. But, if I look at this, beyond the name on the front, there is no design element whatsoever. Okay, maybe the wristlet, but even then, there's not much that actually went into coming up with the design for this item. For ease of use, this clutch got a 6 from me. So in a way, it is easy to use because it's a nice keep all. You also got a wristlet for extra security if you're carrying it with you, and you've got a zipper as well for extra security. But the reason that I gave it a 6 and not a higher number is because at least in the clutch that I have, the zipper is just really tight. So I have to struggle a little bit to zip and unzip this clutch. And for this reason, I didn't give it actually a higher ranking. And for quality of craftsmanship, I gave this clutch a 3. I mean, as you can see, I cannot necessarily zip it up easily. But yes, for quality of craftsmanship, it gets a 3. And again, the zipper is the main consideration here, because I think when we are paying designer prices, some things should be just easy to manipulate. For example, the zipper. And because there is not much involved here, I couldn't really speak about the quality. I mean, there are no obvious drawbacks aside from the zipper, but in a simple item like this, I think everything should be working correctly. So that's why it gets a 3 for the quality of craftsmanship. For the capacity, however, this clutch gets a 9. And I think that's kind of an obvious one. Even though it is flat, it is really roomy, so you can fit a lot in here. Definitely your phone. And as I mentioned, if you're carrying this around, for example, during your travel, you can put your passport, boarding passes, some smaller items, maybe a wallet in here as well. So I think this clutch is really quite capacious. It can also be used as a kind of keep all in a larger tote. I do this as well when I travel, and quite a few items can actually be fit into this clutch. And for the cost, I gave this clutch an 8. So it's a fairly high score once again. The cheapest price that I could find for this clutch on Farfetch is $414. So come on, honestly, when I think about designer prices these days, $414 to pay for like a clutch from a big brand like Saint Laurent is really not bad money. The only reason I scored this at an 8 instead of maybe like a 10 or a 9 is because, okay, for $400, you're not getting anything that's made out of leather aside from this trim, right? This is a completely canvas clutch with just a leather trim and a leather wristlet. So $400, $414 is a great price, but you're not getting a leather item. So for this reason, I gave it an 8 for the cost as opposed to an even higher score. And last but not least, I wanted to show you this Calypso padded clutch, which I found online, specifically this elongated model. So Saint Laurent has a couple of different models for Calypso padded clutch, but I specifically wanted to look at this kind of east-west clutch looking model. So for versatility, I gave this model a 6. So it's a fairly high score. Yes, it doesn't have a wristlet, but I like the fact that it is a bit elongated. It also has a zipper, which provides it with additional security. I feel that it could be styled at night, but also styled during the day. And because it has a zipper, I think it would also be like a great catch-all, keep-all in a bigger tote. So for this reason, for versatility, I gave this clutch a 6. For the uniqueness of design, I actually gave this clutch a 4. So it is not the lowest score, but it's not a high score either. Basically, I like that this is a padded clutch, so it makes it look a little bit more interesting. But aside from that, there is nothing else that is unique or interesting about this particular model. The one redeeming element here is that you could also find this model in a number of different leather variations. So it is actually possible to find a clutch that kind of fits your style and fits your aesthetic. So for the next category that we are looking at, specifically ease of use, I actually gave this clutch a 7. It is a fairly high score, and that's because I think, it is an east-west model, so it's easy to kind of hold it, put it under your armpit. It has a zipper, which also makes it a little bit more secure. And if that zipper actually functions well, I think it would be very easy to get in and out of the clutch, so there is no issues there. So for this reason, I gave it a fairly high score of 7. Now, the next criteria that we have is quality of craftsmanship, which is basically difficult to judge just because, I'm looking at the pictures. I actually don't have this clutch myself. But just looking at the quality of the leather, looking at the quality of stitching, I gave this clutch a score of 6. It does look like something that is well made, but I would really want to check the zipper on this particular clutch just to make sure that indeed it actually moves easily. So for capacity, I gave this clutch an 8. I think you can fit quite a few items in there, specifically because it is a longer model, east-west model. You can definitely fit a phone and probably a couple of other items as well. So I think this clutch is really quite capacious. And once again, given that fact, I think it can also be a very nice keep-all in a bigger tote bag. And for the cost, I actually gave this clutch a 5, so a score in the middle. The cheapest I could find it online, and I'm going to link it down below, was for $825, which is, is up there. This is definitely not the cheapest clutch on today's list. But I think it has two redeeming qualities. The leather looks really nice and really luxurious, and it also has a zipper, which provides additional security. So I think for this reason, $825, could be an acceptable price to pay for a clutch like this. So again, I gave it a score in the middle, a score of 5. All right, so I'm going to put all the numbers on the screen, but it looks like we have a winner. And the winner is this Cassandre Quilted Clutch. And to be honest, I'm actually really not surprised. I think it makes sense. It is easy to use, it has a wide opening, it is of good quality, and the price point is, let's say somewhat acceptable considering luxury prices right now. It also has a wristlet, which makes it just a little bit more versatile than some of the other models. And I also wanted to mention that for the second place, we have a tie. And a tie is between Calypso Padded Clutch and this puffer pouch. And I'm not surprised either, especially when it comes to this puffer pouch. I know it has some drawbacks, but I really like this tiny little thing. I've been using it a lot because I find it quite cute and, versatile enough. I like the fact that it has a separate card holder that comes with it, and I really like the quality of the leather as well. So I'm kind of happy that this puffer pouch, together with the Calypso padded clutch, which I don't have, actually came in the second place. All right, let me know in the comments down below, what did you think about my ranking? And before you go, check out this video next. In this video, I'm unboxing my latest bag purchase. It is a wallet to go from Hermes. But for now, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. Take care and bye-bye.